After 2 long years, on the eve of the holiday of Simchat Torah this week, Israel finally saw tears of joy. The living hostages are home. Emotional footage shows embraces, tears, and disbelief as they were freed in exchange for more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, many convicted of deadly, murderous attacks. But the euphoric homecomings of the last living 20 hostages are shadowed by unbearable loss. Not every hostage came back alive. Israel also received some of the bodies of the murdered hostages, while many more remain unaccounted for. Here at ILTV, we've followed the story of these hostages since that horrific day 2 years ago, not as headlines, but as human lives. Mothers and fathers, husbands, wives, and children who were stolen from their families. Some are finally home now, facing the long road to recovery. Others have been murdered, with their families demanding their bodies be brought back for burial. We remember every one of them. We bear witness, and we renew the promise that until every hostage is home, alive or fallen, this story is not over. As the country watches these stories unfold, many are asking what comes next for those who have finally made it back. After years of darkness, captivity, and fear, the road ahead will be one of recovery, both physical and emotional. Doctors across Israel are working carefully to help the freed hostages heal from the toll of 2 years in Hamas captivity, while their families begin the long process of rebuilding life together. Our correspondent, India Naftali, joins us now with more on where the freed hostages are today and how they're recovering.
Hi, Sivan. Now that the last 20 living Israeli hostages have finally returned home, we're seeing emotional and long-awaited reunions. But alongside those reunions, the former hostages are also receiving medical treatment for various conditions they developed during their 2 years in Hamas captivity. On Monday, the hostages were handed over to the Red Cross and brought back to Israel. Each hostage was greeted by their closest relatives at the Reunite military base near the Gaza border. From there, they were flown to hospitals across Israel for medical and psychological care. Prime Minister Netanyahu, along with his wife Sarah, visited the freed hostages at Beilinson Hospital in Petah Tikva, Israel.
הבטחתי להחזיר אותם, והחזרנו אותם. ועכשיו, אחרי שהם מחובקים על ידי משפחותיהם, גם אנחנו נחבק אותם.
Many of the hostages are suffering the effects of starvation, which includes severe malnutrition, muscle loss, and vitamin and salt deficiencies. They are also at risk of refeeding syndrome if treated too quickly. Eviatar David's father told Israeli media his son is struggling with nutrient and mineral deficiencies. And former hostage Eitan Horn's family member shared this.
So Eitan was released less than 24 hours ago, so he's not sharing so much. He's just like throwing here and there some stories. He asked for meat, and when he got this plate with this huge piece of meat, he was excited, and I saw tears in his eyes. And
we also know that Elkana Bobot is reportedly suffering stomach pain after being overfed before his release, along with experiencing leg and back pain. Matan Angrest, who was injured in Gaza, has severe burns on his right hand and fingers, as well as damage to his vision. And Alon Ohel, who was hit by shrapnel on October 7th, faces possible permanent vision loss in one eye, while specialists are racing to save the other. Still, amid the medical challenges, families are filled with relief. Guy Gilboa Dalal's family wore shirts reading, "Guy is home, the heart is whole again." Guy lifted his sister into the air, and his father wrapped himself in an Israeli flag. Avinatan Or reunited with his girlfriend, Noa Algamani, whose kidnapping video became one of the most recognizable images of October 7th. Algamani, who was released last year, has since traveled the world calling for his release. Now, the two are finally together again. Eitan Mol's parents embraced their son through tears, thanking God for his return. His father Tzvika said simply, "This is the day the Lord has made. We will rejoice in it." Matan Zangakar's mother shouted, my life, you champion, you hero," as she ran to her son. And Bar Cooperstein's father stood up from his wheelchair to hug him. Omri Miran, whose daughter was just a baby on October 7th, is now hearing her say daddy for the first time, and finally getting to see his older daughter, who is now 4 years old. Soldier Matan Angrest was also seen speaking with former captive Keith Siegel in a video call. The two were once held together in Gaza. Thankfully, Sivan, the former hostages are in stable condition. But of course, as a result of the conditions they were living under for the past 2 years, medical professionals are doing everything they can to treat them with caution. The reunification with their families is a critical part of the healing and rehabilitation process, and the nation is also beginning its own healing process with them. Sivan?
Thank you, India. Israel woke to the sacred work of bringing the murdered hostages home as another round of bodies returned overnight. More on this from ILTV's executive editor, Mayan Hoffman.
Overnight, a second convoy of 4 coffins crossed into Israel and was taken to the National Center of Forensic Medicine for identification. By first light, 3 of the 4 were confirmed. Uriel Baruch, 35, from Giv'on, IDF soldier Tamir Nimrodi, 20, from Niritz, and Eitan Levi of Bat Yam. A security official confirmed that the 4th body returned to Israel last night did not belong to a hostage, but was a member affiliated with Hamas. With these returns, 7 hostages' bodies have now come home since the deal took effect. According to Israeli officials and the families, 21 bodies are still to be brought back. Baruch, known to his friends as Badalo, worked in construction materials, loved techno, and was the person who always showed up for others. Nimrodi, an education NCO who volunteered to cover his Shabbat shift, had just interviewed for officer training the week before he was abducted. Levi is remembered by his family as warm, responsible, and endlessly kind, devoted to his son Shachar and his fiancée, Shira. These latest identifications followed Tuesday's confirmations of 4 others: Guy Iluz, 26, a sound tech seized at Nova; Bipin Joshi, 24, a Nepali agricultural student taken from Kibbutz Alumim; Yossi Sharabi, 53, of Kibbutz Be'eri; and Captain Daniel Peretz, 22, an Armored Corps officer killed in the fighting near Nahal Oz. Together, their stories map the breadth of October 7th. Civilians and soldiers, Israelis and foreign students, all now on their way to a proper burial.
There is clear indication that this might take much more time because of the difficulty to find the human remains in Gaza in particular.
Families say the timetable is unbearable and that the agreement must be honored in full.
And right now, there is a violation of the agreement. 48 hostages have not been brought back, and we demand of the Israeli government, and we demand of everybody involved, especially the U.S. and the Arab countries that vouch this agreement, we demand them to take action.
Vigils will continue at Hostages Square and outside Abu Kabir. Officials caution the next phase will be slower and messier, with complex searches amid rubble, but the promise remains the same: bring every one of Israel's hostages home.
Back in Washington, after the historic Sharm el-Sheikh Gaza Peace Summit, U.S. President Donald Trump warned Hamas to carry out its obligations under the international agreement or face the consequences. The U.S. President declared, return the bodies and disarm or else. More from ILTV's Devo Klein.
Trump recently said if Hamas doesn't uphold its vow to disarm, quote, we will disarm them, perhaps violently. The American president said that the job is not yet done on the ceasefire deal, as, quote, the dead have not been returned as promised. According to Trump, Hamas told his top aides on Tuesday that it will disarm. To that, Trump said that the terror group could be dealt with violently if it refuses to do so.
How long will it take Hamas to disarm, and can you guarantee that is going to happen?
Well, they're going to disarm, and because they said they were going to disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them.
How will you do that?
I don't have to explain that to you. But if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. They know I'm not playing games. Okay? Now, we did something monumental. We got the hostages back. That was the first thing we had to do. Above all else, get the hostages back. Now, they misrepresented because we were told they had 26, 24 of dead hostages, if we can use those terms. And it seems as though they don't have that.
President Trump arrived back in Washington after organizing the Peace Summit in Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt, where he and other world leaders signed the Trump Declaration for Enduring Peace and Prosperity. In Sharm el-Sheikh, U.S. President Donald Trump declared an end to the war in Gaza and promised a prosperous future for the Middle East.
But the momentous breakthrough that we're here to celebrate tonight is more than the end of the war in Gaza. It's with God's help it'll be the new beginning for an entire beautiful Middle East. From this moment forward, we can build a region that's strong and stable and prosperous and united in rejecting the path of terror once and for all. We want to get rid of the terror and get on to other things. There are many other things in life that are so good.
President Trump led more than 20 world leaders in signing an agreement that formalizes the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The agreement includes the final hostages that still need to be brought home and sets the framework for Gaza's reconstruction. Trump made clear that a multinational police force would control Gaza moving forward. The formal agreement was signed by President Trump, Egyptian President al-Sisi, Qatar's Emir al-Thani, and Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan. Neither Israel nor Hamas was present at the conference. Under the deal, Israel freed Palestinian security prisoners and has withdrawn to the agreed lines. In a symbolic moment, President Trump stood alongside the leaders of key regional states and included the Palestinian Authority. Trump traveled to Sharm el-Sheikh directly from Israel, but Israeli officials were not in attendance. Technically, Israel is observing a ceasefire in Gaza that is part of Phase 1 of the Trump agreement. From Israel's standpoint, the war in Gaza is paused as initial steps are taken to bring a new post-war reality to Gaza.
Meanwhile, Hamas fighters tightened their grip on areas it controls in Gaza by carrying out public executions in a defiant show of force. A gruesome video of 7 public executions was confirmed by Hamas, with some 30 Gazans murdered since the start of the ceasefire with Israel. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The gruesome executions came even as Israel insists that the war cannot end until the terror group is fully disarmed. In a stark assertion of its return, Hamas fighters executed men they accused of collaborating with Israeli forces. In one video, verified by Reuters, masked gunmen dragged 7 men into a crowd in Gaza City, forced them to their knees, and shot them from behind. They opened fire with machine guns as crowds chanted, Allah Akbar. A Hamas source admitted that members of factions, including Hamas, carried out the killings. Footage also shows Hamas gunmen deploying in southern Gaza, including members of the elite Shadow Unit, which held Israeli hostages during the war. Gaza residents reported that Hamas fighters were increasingly visible, deploying along routes needed for aid deliveries. Palestinian security sources say dozens have been killed in recent clashes between Hamas and rival groups since the ceasefire began. At least 33 Gazans have been executed by Hamas for alleged collaboration or challenging its rule. The brutal killings underscore the dangers of allowing Hamas to retain any power in post-war Gaza. Israel and the United States have made clear that Hamas must be disarmed and removed from governance to ensure lasting security and stability. Meanwhile, Israeli drone fire and airstrikes targeted individuals who crossed truce lines and approached Israeli forces after ignoring warnings to turn back. And rebuilding efforts in Gaza are already underway. Bulldozers, some bearing Qatari flags, rolled through the streets of Gaza City, clearing massive amounts of rubble left from 2 years of war. The post-ceasefire recovery operation led by the Gaza municipality is aimed at reopening major roads to allow displaced residents to return home. The massive clearing and aid efforts mark the first step in Gazans' long road to recovery following the ceasefire agreement. Meanwhile, humanitarian aid is flowing in through southern Gaza, where trucks were mobbed by crowds in Khan Yunis. Residents are urging international agencies to organize distribution to ensure supplies reach those most in need. There were chaotic scenes of desperate residents jostled to collect supplies, with some expressing frustration over the unorganized delivery methods.
An important announcement. ILTV News and the Jewish Agency for Israel will mark 2 years since the October 7th massacre with a powerful 90-minute broadcast. Now moved to Sunday, October 19th. This special event will share survivor testimonies, stories of resilience, and the unity of Jewish communities worldwide. Join us as we honor the victims, support the families, and stand together for Israel's future. Mark your calendars. The new date is October 19th. Scan the QR code now to sign up and be part of this meaningful program. happening on Sunday. A lot of news, and joining us to discuss all of it is Professor Kobi Michael of the Misgav Institute. Thank you for joining, Kobi.
Thank you for having me.
Kobi, 20 living hostages have been thankfully released. The release of the living hostages brought relief and a lot of joy, but only a handful of the bodies have been returned so far, with many still missing. What challenges is Israel facing in bringing them home? What do you foresee will happen on this front?
I assume that unfortunately we will not be able to reach to all of the dead hostages, to all of the bodies that were buried in the Gaza Strip, because people who buried them are not with us anymore. They were killed by the IDF, and all the geography, the terrain of the Gaza Strip has been changed dramatically, and there might be some severe difficulties to allocate all the bodies. But on the other hand, there is no doubt that Hamas holds not few of them. Hamas itself admitted that they have an access to something like 15 bodies. So the idea that we got only 7 until now is something that indicates about Hamas intentions, about Hamas behavior, and about Hamas attitude, and about the idea that Hamas will find any opportunity and will use any opportunity in order to manipulate, in order to create the psychological pressure, in order to torture the nerves of the Israeli society and the families. This is Hamas. This is what Hamas was. This is what Hamas is. And I assume that this is what Hamas will be in the future.
How do you think that Israel should hold Hamas accountable for the bodies that are still unrecovered? What will Israel do if they're not accounted for?
I think that Israel has a very good intelligence with regard to the capacities of Hamas, with regard to the bodies which Hamas has an access to. And as long as we have this intelligence, I assume that Hamas will be continued pressured by the mediators and by Israel, that is able to use some leverages against Hamas. But at the end of the day, I think that Israel will know, based on its intelligence, what is the edge. I mean, if Hamas is not capable anymore, sincerely, to have an access or to reach to bodies.
Now, with the living hostages returned, does this mark the end of the war, as has been announced everywhere? Or is it merely phase 1? Like, what needs to happen next?
We are still in phase 1, and phase 2 and phase 3 are much more complicated. Phase 2 is concentrated on the idea of disarming Hamas and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip. I'm really skeptical about the idea that Hamas will cooperate with these efforts in order to realize this phase. It doesn't look that Hamas is in this direction, but on the contrary, Hamas does all its efforts in order to reconstitute itself in the Gaza Strip, in all the areas that the IDF withdrew from. And we saw all the executions, the public executions in the streets there. And we saw that Hamas is capable to recruit many thousands of militants. And the way that Hamas behaves until now does not indicate that Hamas intends to make a step forward towards the realization, the implementation of phase 2 and phase 3. And in this regard, I think that we are going to face a very challenging problem.
Kobi Michael, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. Goodbye.
Last week, ILTV's Devo Klein took a trip to one of Leket Israel's open field day, where volunteers from around the world came together to rescue food items and deliver them to Israel's vulnerable communities. Leket Israel is a lifeline of nourishment to so many in Israel, making their work crucial for the people of Israel. Before we find out how you can support Leket, let's see what Devo was able to capture.
I'm standing right now at a field just south of Tel Aviv, and behind me is occurring something very special. We have over 750 volunteers coming mostly from abroad, coming together today to volunteer picking sweet potatoes from the field for Leket Israel. Where are these sweet potatoes heading, you ask? Let's take a look. This sweet potato field is currently being harvested by the volunteers of Leket Israel, making sure that crops that would have been destined for the trash make it to the tables of Israel's impoverished community.
So Leket Israel is Israel's food rescue network, I would say. We work with farmers and corporate cafeterias, army bases, food manufacturers to make sure that perfectly good, healthy, nutritious, safe food doesn't go to waste. So this is just one example of thousands and thousands of different operations that Leket does throughout the year, picking up food, bringing volunteers, tens of thousands a year, to make sure that perfectly good food doesn't go to waste.
These volunteers come in from all across the United States to volunteer with Leket Israel. For them, it's more than just agricultural work in Israel. It's a monumental giving to the people of Israel.
I really just wanted the opportunity to give back to the people of Israel. They've been doing so much, so this is our chance to help those in need.
And where are you from?
Teaneck, New Jersey.
Why do you think we should help people?
Because they need it, and like if we can do it, and like it's fun for us too, so we can also do it and help them.
Maya and Sophia, two girls, decided to harvest with Leket Israel for their bat mitzvahs.
We're picking sweet potatoes for Leket Israel for people who need them, like, and they can't like afford food, so like we're like Leket Israel like brings the food to them instead. It's also it's like very special that like we can like also like it's in Israel and we can help people, and it's a really big mitzvah.
At the end of the day, the volunteers who came out to support Leket Israel collected a massive 6,800 kilos of sweet potatoes, an enormous amount that makes a huge difference.
It's a way also to get people more connected, our donors more connected, and people that are more connected to Leket Israel and what we do.
For these volunteers, Leket allows them a chance to give back to the people of Israel, no matter where you are from.
I live in America, so like when I come here, I wanted to do something for here. So it's like, and this one's like a nice one because like you actually get to do something. You're not just like if you're just donating like money to something, you're not really doing something, and it doesn't actually feel like you're doing something. So this is really nice because like I'm doing it, and also yeah, it's like a mitzvah, and like it's for my bat mitzvah.
Hands-on, you're saying?
Yeah.
It's not about welfare at all. It's about economy, it's about the environment, it's even about health. That's what Leket does, and that's what food rescue is.
What an inspiring event. Scan the QR code on your screen right now to donate and help Leket feed Israel's hungry. It's an investment that directly impacts lives here in the Holy Land. Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 18 degrees Celsius or 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 28 degrees Celsius or 76 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.